Hey, if you'd like to earn CEUs for this webinar, join the Safeopedia community at the link in the description below. Now, on to the show.
Well, thank you so much. And good morning to Pooja and Craig and Randy, Gillette, Wyoming. I'm in Loveland, Colorado, so I'm not that far away from you. I am delighted to be here with you this morning. Here's what I'm hoping that you all walk away with today. I would love it if you understood what habits are, what they look like in your brain, and then you get to work with your brain instead of asking it to do things that it's frankly not designed to do, which is a very frustrating place for people to be. And then I'm going to show you how to intentionally make a new habit, and you're all going to leave here with an action plan, something that you can do specifically to turn something you want to have a habit into your life, to make that a reality. Oh, nice. It's a great place to live. Okay, so as we go through this, I have 3 key takeaways for you. So I'll highlight those, some things that I hope if you remember nothing else from what we talk about today, you will remember these 3 things. So this is a little bit more about me. And so what I do is I work with companies around the country, helping people create habits. Sometimes we're talking about very specific safety behaviors. Sometimes, oh, hey, Mike, nice to see you. Sometimes we're talking about specific safety behaviors. Sometimes we're talking about health and wellness. Sometimes we're talking about leadership and communication, because we are not born good leaders. We are not born good communicators. These are skills, and we can build them, we can practice them until they become part of how we interact with people. And what I've learned through the course of my work is that knowledge, willpower, and motivation are just not enough. You know, we have this idea of behavior change that's wrong. What we think is that once somebody knows what they need to do, then gosh darn it, they just got to do it. They need to buckle down. They need to stick to it. They need to try harder. If only they wanted it more, then they'd be able to do it. But it's not true. We're going to take this idea that you don't have enough drive, determination, intelligence, or heart, and we're going to throw it out the window because it's not true. That is not the problem. The problem is that when anybody makes a decision and then relies on their willpower and motivation to make that decision last, they are going to fail over and over again. And you don't have to take my word for this, because you can gauge this on your own personal experience. All right, go ahead and type into the chat box for me. I'm curious, what are the foods that you can't say no to, that you don't want to say no to? What are your favorite foods? All right, Scott, popcorn, excellent. Good choice. Spaghetti, sweet tea, chips, cheese. Used to be gummy bears, and ice cream and salmon. Interesting choice. Chips, chocolate donut, chicken wings. And we have, sweet teeth, and we have meat teeth out there. So great. Donuts and ice cream, sushi, pierogies. Oh, these are great. Now for me, it is really donuts. I love donuts. I feel like maybe, Melanie, you're pulling my leg. Is prunes really like you can't say no to it? Now, though, for me, type into the chat box for me if you know what I'm talking about when I say hot now Krispy Kreme. Who knows what I'm talking about? Oh yeah, right. Yes. Okay. So when my husband got stationed at Fort Gordon in Augusta, Georgia, it was the first time I'd lived in the South, and I discovered the hot now Krispy Kreme. Now, for those of you who don't know this, when Krispy Kreme is cooking their donuts, there's a special light that goes off in the sign, and it says hot now, and you can get there and you can stand in line and you can watch the donuts travel down the river of oil and then up the rollers underneath a fountain of icing, down the rollers and into a box, and they hand you the box, and the box is hot. And I will sit in the parking lot and I will eat 1 or 2 donuts before I leave because it's like eating hot, sweet air. It is amazing, and it nearly ruined me for all other donuts. Douglas, I feel you. I love Dunkin' Donuts too, but do try them sometimes, at least once. It's heaven. Exactly, Matthew. So if somebody brings a box of donuts into the office, I can walk right past them. the first time. And then the second time I kind of slow down and I'm looking in the box and I'm counting like, how many donuts are left in the box? And then I will find a reason to walk past that box of donuts. And now I'm going to cut a donut in half because I'm just going to have a half a donut. And we all know that this story does not end with a half a donut, because sometimes it is easy to call on your willpower and sometimes it's not. And we don't have a lot of time to talk about that today because we only have 45 minutes together. But just know this, know that in a nutshell, that willpower is highly unreliable. And if there is a chance that you are tired, hungry, stressed out, there is a very good chance that your brain is going to follow the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance isn't what you should do or need to do. It's not even what you want to do. The path of least resistance are your habits. See, with willpower, you have to think about what you want to do. So it's, remember, I'm trying to eat better. Remember, I need to wear this PPE. Remember. And that's going to work sometimes, but we are also it's also going to fail you at certain times. So when something is a habit, you don't have to think about it. You don't decide to do it. You don't talk yourself out of your morning cup of coffee, and you don't forget to brush your teeth in the morning. These things happen unconsciously and automatically because they're habits. And the more behaviors that we can move to habit level, the more willpower we have left over for the places in our life where we do really need it. And our life is filled with habits. So yes, we have those things we traditionally think of as habits. So brushing your teeth, exercising, yeah, those are habits. But so are how you react under stress. You have habits of thoughts and how you make decisions and how you interact with other people, because by and large, right, we're interacting with the same people, we're talking about the same things and doing the same things. We are all creatures of habit. And these habits are so powerful that we don't want to just let them happen. What we want to do is make a habit of what's going to accomplish our goals, and we want to get rid of the habits that don't do that. So this is my first takeaway for you, is that knowledge is not enough. Training your team is not enough, because that knowledge rests on the surface level of your brain, and it requires that people remember that they know this at all, and then B, that they have the willpower available to follow through on that. That is not a reliable way to change behavior. What we want to do, again, is move it to habit level. But that's going to be a lot easier if we're all exactly on the same page about what is a habit. Because when we talk about habit, we actually tend to talk about it and think about it as if it was a behavior. And now that we have advanced neuroimaging and we have all these scientific experiments, we know that a habit is an actual physical thing. It exists inside your head. So let's take a deep dive into what's going on here. Now, there are two parts of your brain that are involved in habit creation. The first is your prefrontal cortex that sits right here, right above your eyes. It's the most recently evolved part of our brain, and it's incredibly powerful. If we look at all of these things that the prefrontal cortex is involved in, this is like a wish list, not just for ourselves, but for your team, the people that you're working with. We would all be healthier, safer, more productive if we were able to use our prefrontal cortex about all of the time. So Brian, I see your question there. If you're thinking about it, it's probably not a habit. And now it's a little bit complicated. So maybe let's table that question and we can take that in the lounge. There's not like a straight black and white answer to your question there. So the problem though with the prefrontal cortex is that it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort to run. Now, the second part of your brain that is involved in habit creation is called your striatum. And your striatum, if anybody could let me know if you've also lost my voice or it's just Pooja, I'm going to keep talking and I'm going to watch the comments.
You're good.
I'm good? Okay. So your striatum sits on top of your brainstem, right kind of in the center of your skull there. And what happens when you're doing something for the first time is that your prefrontal cortex and your striatum fire up, and now there's this communication loop between the two of them. And because your brain wants you to be successful at this new activity, it's going to work really hard, and all the neurons are going to be firing. But your brain is also a really quick learner. So the next time you do it, it doesn't work as hard. We have a few less neurons fire. And then you do it again and again and again, and it gets easier and easier, and fewer neurons have to fire in order for you to complete that task. When you've repeated something often enough that it's become a habit, that prefrontal cortex, it doesn't have to be involved anymore. And it's not all the neurons during that activity. It's just the ones at the beginning and at the end, and the rest of that time, you can be on autopilot. So here is your second key takeaway. Repetition is the mother of habit. You can actually forget all of that science as long as you remember this. By repeating an action over and over and over, you carve a neural pathway deep in your brain, and it requires very little work to operate. So really, if you remember nothing else, I hope you remember this. So let's just do a knowledge test here in the chat box for me. I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to put the answer in there. And by the way, this is not a trick question. What is the mother of habit? All right, Brian is in there first, and then we've got Mike and Sally and Aaron, Terry, Brittany. All right, you guys are awesome. Repetition is the mother of habit. And of course, you have all been through this process many times in your lives. All right, type into the chat box for me. How many of you here also learned how to drive on a stick shift? Am I in good company today? Anybody else out there? Okay, all right, lots of people. Now, don't worry, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to explain this to you. So when I was learning how to drive, for me, it was just like an overwhelming experience that I'm learning how to pay attention to lights and drivers and pedestrians. And did I put my turn signal on? Like, there's so much. And on top of that, I have to learn this really complicated maneuver where you press in on the clutch, you put the car in gear, and then with the right amount of magic pressure, you begin to step in on the gas and release the clutch. And I sat through more than one green light in an utter panic, just stalling my car out over and over again. In the beginning, driving was really hard, and all I could do was focus on driving. But now, driving is easy. And if you have ever gotten in your car in your driveway and then arrived at your destination and thought, holy crap, like, did I stop at every stoplight because I don't even remember the drive? If that has ever happened to you, then this is right. This is habit creation process. Once driving becomes a habit, your brain doesn't have to work very hard. Just the neurons in the beginning in your driveway, and then the ones at your destination. And in the meantime, you can think about, okay, so what do I got going on at work today? And who's going to be out? And what deliveries are we expecting? And what errands do I need to run on my way home from work? And it turns out that habits are a phenomenal productivity tool for your brain. It frees you up for doing other things, which is really, really important because your brain has a lot of things it needs to be doing. Take a moment right now just to appreciate everything your brain is doing to manage your body. That it is paying attention to your blood oxygen level and your body temperature and your hydration. And, oh, are my eyes dry? Am I blinking enough? There's a lot just here that it's managing. And then let's add on top of that everything that's happening in the external world around you. The colors, the places, the people, the signs, the lights, the noises, the movement, the things that could be snakes or spiders that we have to watch out for. And then let's add on top of that everything you need to do your job. There is so much for your brain to do that it can't possibly do it all. And it is using shortcuts to accomplish as much as possible. Now, there are many different types of shortcuts, but the one that applies to what we're talking about here today are habits. A habit is a neural shortcut your brain can use when it's doing something that it has done before. But even if it wasn't about productivity, your brain would still use habits. Your brain loves habits because your brain is lazy. It is, I'm sorry, this is nothing personal. This is not about you. It is just the nature of the human brain. It does not want to fire up the prefrontal cortex if it doesn't have to, for any longer than it needs to do it. Now, once we understand that about our brain, we learn to work with it instead of asking it to do things that it is not designed to do. So when you hear me talk about habits, what I'm talking about are neural pathways. If you want to make a new habit, you have to repeat something over and over and over till you carve that neural pathway in your brain. If you want to break a habit, you have to stop using a neural pathway that already exists. And this leads us to our next key takeaway. If you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing or not doing something you should be doing, it's not because you're an idiot. You are not broken. This is very simple. You don't have neural pathways for behaviors you want, but you could get them by repeating an action over and over and over. Or you don't have neural pathways. Wait, did I say that wrong? You don't have neural pathways for behaviors you want, but you could get them by repeating an action. Or you have neural pathways for behaviors that you don't want, but you got them by successfully completing an action. And you are not your neural pathways. Our brains are capable of change. In fact, they are changing every single day. How long, type into the chat box for me, how long do you think it takes to carve a neural pathway in your brain? How many days to create a new habit? We've got 21, we have 3 weeks, 7, 14, 21, 90, 4 weeks, 24. Sorry, they're going really quick here. 100 hours, 30, 42, 21. Okay, so 6 weeks. We have a pretty big range here. And the answer is that you are all potentially correct. The truth is that we don't really know how long it takes. We don't have a lot of science on this. There's only one study that I know of. It's out of the University of College London. They followed 96 people in creating a habit of their choosing, and they found that it took anywhere between 18 days and, are you guys ready for this number? 254 days. So that is a huge range that's going on there. Type into the chat box for me, what do you think's going on? What makes some habits easier to create than others? And Doran knew the actual answer, right? It depends. All right, so rewards, absolutely. Desire, dopamine, buy-in, enjoyment, mind over matter, fun, willingness to change, complexity, enjoyability, familiarity, desire, how you feel about it. So I would agree, I think, with most of those. I have a few that I definitely want to point at, what we like versus what we don't like. So motivation. Why is this important to me? Pleasure. The better it feels, the easier it is to turn into a habit. And unfortunately, all those habits we wish we had do not come with any built-in pleasure, right? We don't have this factor going for us. Complexity. The longer something takes, the more steps that are involved, the harder it's going to be to turn into a habit. And some things never really become a habit at all. Your existing neural pathway or the familiarity that we saw pop up there. Your past experiences can make it easier or more difficult. It just depends on what those past experiences are. Frequency. So something that is happening every day or multiple times a day is so much easier than something that happens once a week or once a month. And let's not forget about support. Does the environment around us support us? Because this is a heck of a lot harder to create a healthy eating habit if your cabinets are stocked with snacks for the kids. And what about the people around you? Are they supporting you, or are they making you feel like an idiot for trying to do this? Because that's going to make it a lot harder. Now, I have some good news for you. Type into the chat box for me if it is possible that maybe, just maybe, you might have a bad habit. Anybody here might have a bad habit? Okay, so Mary and Rosie, Mike, David, Sally, maybe. I'm just saying maybe, right? Several, you don't have to tell me what they are. Yes, this is good news. This is good news because if you can create a bad habit, you can create a good habit. Neurologically speaking, it is exactly the same process. And every single one of you is actually already an expert in habit creation. You just need a system for doing that intentionally. So that is what we're going to dive into next. I'm going to share with you a habit creation system. We're not going to be able to have time to go through all of it. Here are some examples of habits that we have worked on with organizations in the past. You are welcome to choose something from this list or not. Anything you want to work on is fine with me. I do have a few tips for you, though, as you are thinking about what your habit is going to be. Now, first, it should be something that you are going to do and not something you need to stop doing. Stop doing is breaking a bad habit, totally different set of strategies, and it's not what we're doing here today. What we are doing here today is creating a new habit, which means we need to repeat something over and over and over. So it's got to be something you can do. And if you've already thought about something you want to stop doing, that's okay. I'm just going to ask you to flip the coin on that. I need to stop eating so much junk food. I need to start packing a healthy lunch. I need to stop spending so much time on my phone. I'm going to start charging my phone in another room. So just flip the coin and look for something positive that you can do on the other side. You also want to choose something that happens that has a lot of frequency. And our habits actually tend to be divided into our work days and our not work days. So if you can do something like 5 days a week, whatever days it is you're working, that's going to give you the best chance for success there. Something that takes less than 10 minutes a day. We talked about complexity as one of those factors, right? So we want to make it simple and short, less than 10 minutes. And it has to be something that you have control over, that you are 100% responsible for whether or not this happens. You are not creating habits for other people. My husband will tell you he hates it when I try to do that. And I can also tell you it doesn't work and we just both end up miserable. So you're not creating a habit for somebody else. This is for you. You're going to create a habit for yourself. I'm going to give you some example habits so you can kind of see how this all comes together. So my examples are going to include an exercise habit, a healthy eating habit, a meditation habit, a productivity habit, getting more sleep, and experiencing more gratitude. Just my examples. If you would like to write that down now, whatever habit you want to work on, if you want to share it in the chat, please do share it. And I can maybe give you some specific examples for those cases, but also I know that habits can be private, so you don't need to share it if you don't want to. But give me a thumbs up when you have your habit, when you know what you're going to work on. Getting more sleep, meditation, gratitude. Thank you, Scott. All right, Mike's got his habit. Sally. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so let's dive into this. If you want to master your habits, it comes down to this. It comes down to mastering the anatomy of a habit. And every habit has 3 parts. Now, we tend to only be aware of the action. So I know I drink coffee in the morning. I know I check my text messages a lot. But first, there's the trigger. Then there's an action, and then there's a reward. In other words, something causes you to behave in a certain way in order to get a particular benefit. For example, my morning cup of coffee is triggered by walking into the kitchen in the morning, and the reward, caffeine. Checking my text messages is triggered by the sound the phone makes, and the reward is finding out what just happened. Putting on my seatbelt is triggered by getting into the front seat of the car, and the reward is to stop that incessant beeping noise. So this is the structure we're going to hack into to intentionally create a new habit. Yes, Mike, coffee, caffeine. All right, we all love it. Now, I always like to start with choosing the action step, right? Knowing what it is we want to do before we figure out when do we do it. Now, when you're choosing your action step, you want to choose something that is simple. We talked about that complexity. So in the beginning, we're thinking about how many steps can we remove? How short can we make it? How many decisions you can get rid of? And as your neural pathway starts to get deeper, it starts to get stronger, you can add more, but in the beginning, we want it to be very, very simple. It has also got to be specific, because if your brain is having a discussion every day about, well, am I going to do it this way? And what about this? Or I could do it this way. That interaction for your brain is actually exhausting, and it's eventually not going to do it. So we're going to choose something simple and specific, something that you can actually take, an action you can actually take. But again, no debate. As that neural pathway gets deeper, you can give yourself more options, but in the beginning, very, very simple. And it's got to be attainable. You are physically capable of doing this. You have the tools, the authority, the confidence. If you don't have those things, we need to troubleshoot that, because otherwise it gets really, really hard to create a new habit. So what might this look like? Well, if you were working on an exercise habit, maybe it could be 10 minutes of cardio. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's something different. This is just for my example here. In the beginning, it's not actually about getting healthy. It's about creating a habit of exercising. So short, specific, right? Attainable, 10 minutes of cardio. I want to work on eating healthier. Great. But you know what? That is also big and overwhelming. And our eating habits are deeply ingrained. They're hard to change. So let's start small. I'm just going to focus on packing myself a healthy lunch. That's something that I feel is attainable for me. I want to be managing my stress. So I'm going to pick up a meditation habit. I'm going to practice 10 minutes of maybe a simple breathing meditation. One meditation or one breathing technique I teach a lot is tactical breathing, box breathing. These are things that you can do anywhere at any time. Nobody even needs to know that you're doing it, but it will absolutely calm you down and change your state. All right, our productivity habit. I want to create a top 5 to-do list. I want to know that these are the things I need to work on. Most important things. I want to get more sleep. Great. We do a whole session on sleep habits, but there's a lot involved there. Let's really kind of focus in on one. Let's tackle one. And if part of the problem is that you're up too late, then let's say I want to be in bed by 10 p.m. That's simple, specific, and attainable for me. I want to feel more gratitude. So I'm going to write down every day 5 things that I'm grateful for. These are my examples. I want to give you a moment here for you to write down for you the habit that you want to work on. What makes sense? What is your simple, specific, attainable action step? Mike, that's great. I love box breathing. It's very accessible for a wide range of audiences. Give me a thumbs up when you've got your action step. Awesome, Matt. Get up more frequently. So you might want to get a little more specific with that. You might want to say something like every hour, every half an hour, in the morning. Get a little more specific. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So April, Terry, Alfonso, Brittany, Melody, Aaron, Scott, Sally. Excellent. Okay. So that's step 1. Step 2 is we have to choose our trigger. Now, if you remember way back to the beginning of my time today, I had said that habits are unconscious. You're not deciding to do things. And then that begs a very important question. How in the heck did I know it was time to do this? Excellent question. I'm so glad you asked. Well, the answer is that you've been triggered, that something has told you it's time to behave in a certain way. And the easiest place to see this is your alarm clock, because your morning because your alarm clock is a trigger that's saying, hello, it's time to do something. And what is that, right? I get up and I brush my teeth and my husband goes and makes a cup of coffee. And I will never understand. You can do anything in the morning if you have not already brushed your teeth, and he does not like to drink coffee after he's brushed his teeth because he says it tastes weird. Doesn't matter. But if you reflect on your morning, you'll realize like it's a routine. It's one series of habits, each one triggering the next. And so you can do that. So we can use this dynamic to our advantage, because what we do is we take our desired habit and we anchor it on top of something that's already happening in your day. That existing habit now becomes a launch pad for a new one. So what might that look like? So for exercise, and on this one, I'm sharing for you what worked for me personally, that I had to exercise as soon as I got out of bed, and I exercised in what I slept in because that was easy for me. If I had to get changed, it was just too much. So first thing in the morning, I got out of bed, I did 10 minutes of cardio. When do you want to pack your lunch? Well, this might actually be something that happens the day before, that maybe after dinner, you go into the kitchen, you put your dish in the dishwasher, and you turn to the refrigerator and you pack yourself a lunch. It's really going to depend on what your schedule is, what makes sense for you. So when are you going to pack your lunch? When are you going to practice your meditation? Well, what makes sense for the reality of your life? Maybe it's right before lunch. So you're going to break for lunch and then you're going to practice 10 minutes of breathing. When do you want to do your list of the top 5 most important things? Personally, I like to do that at the end of the day because then I know my mind can kind of rest, because it knows like tomorrow morning, as soon as I get started, this is what I'm focused on. So my example here is I'm going to have a timer on my phone that says prepare your to-do list. I want to be in bed by 10 p.m. So why am I not in bed by 10 p.m. now? If it's because I'm watching TV, then maybe my trigger is the end of this program means TV off, I get ready for bed. When am I going to write my gratitude list? Well, this might be something you do at the end of the day. And you get into bed and you have on your end table a little notepad and a pen, and you write down 5 things that you are grateful for today. Now, go ahead and write down your trigger. What existing habit are you going to anchor this new habit on top of? And give me a thumbs up when you've got it. All right. Scott and David and Brian, Rosie, terrific. Melody, Cindy, Sally, Olafunzo, I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Terry, Catherine, Amanda, Antoinetta. One of the hardest things as a virtual presenter is knowing how people pronounce their names. I have yet to find a graceful way to do it. So great, you all have it. And now we're going to move on to rewards. So what happens when you reward yourself is that chemicals are going to go off in your brain. Dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin, and these chemicals feel good. Your brain associates that good feeling with the last thing that just happened. So when you take your new action, reward yourself, take your action, reward yourself, take your action, reward yourself, you will actually build a physical and emotional bond with this behavior. And then what happens is that if you don't do it, there's a little voice in the back of your head saying, something's not right. Oh, hey, I know. Could you go take this action so I can have my reward, please? And if you can see how powerful that is, because now you don't have to just buckle down, grind it out. Your brain and your body want to do this because it feels good for them. So we want to end our action with something that is cheap, easy, healthy. But most importantly, it has to occur as close to the end of the action as possible. If I do this all week, then this weekend, not a reward. It is not close enough to that action for your brain to make that association. So it's action, reward, action, reward. Now we have many, many different types of rewards. I'm going to give you some examples here. You can move your body in a way that is fun and enjoyable for you. Not exercise, okay? Exercise is not a reward, but you can pump your fist in the air, slap your chest, snap your fingers, give yourself a high five. And if you're looking at this list here and you're thinking, I don't know, Sharon, these are a little silly. That's true. These are a little silly. Don't worry. I have many more examples for you. But I will also point out that if it puts a smile on your face, that's a clue. Like, wow, that felt good. That's a reward. But it could also cause a physical reaction in your body. And if you think about some of the habits that are most ingrained in your life, they're these. They come with built-in physical rewards. Tobacco products of any kind, drinking, donuts, Doritos, built-in physical rewards. Can we use this in a way that is healthy for us? Now, I leave brushing your teeth on here just so I can tell a story that I read in the book called The Power of Habit. And you know that clean, tingly feeling you get when you brush your teeth? That's a reward. And toothbrushing did not take off in this country until they added that to tooth powder. Up until that point in time, you bought tooth powder to keep your teeth from falling out of your face. That's a very good reason. Did we really need a better reason than that to brush our teeth? And the answer is yeah, we did. Because people bought the tooth powder, they didn't use the tooth powder, so they never bought any more tooth powder. But now, if you've ever had your morning just kind of like run off the rails and all of a sudden you stop and you're like, did I brush my teeth today? That is this process in action. That is your brain and your body saying, hey, go get my reward. Yes, donuts are always a reward, Scott, in my book. All right, emotional rewards. These are just things that you as an individual find rewarding. So if you are a checklist person, put it on your checklist. If you love music, incorporate a song, turn it into an anthem, have a mantra, look at a picture of your family. You can get one of those big staple buttons that says, that was easy. Sound is actually very satisfying. So that's something to play around with. And then social rewards. There's a reason that billions of people are logging into Facebook and TikTok and Instagram. We are addicted to social rewards. So here you're just asking yourself, how do I get somebody else to celebrate this with me? For example, what worked for me is I would get out of bed, I would do my exercise, and then I could take a shower. And by the way, if I did not exercise, I could not take my shower. Nobody wants that. So that's what ended up working for me. It's after dinner, I walk into the kitchen, I put my dish away, I turn to the refrigerator, I pack myself a lunch, and then on the side of the refrigerator, I have a calendar. And for each day I do it, I put an X on it, and I get to start to see this nice long string of successes adding up. It's lunchtime. I practice 10 minutes of tactical breathing, and then I get to eat lunch because for better or worse, food is always a reward. A timer goes off on my phone. I write down my 5 most important things to work on tomorrow, and then I have a mint. It's 10 p.m. The news program has ended. I turn it off and I get myself into bed and I can read a book or a magazine, whatever it is that we might enjoy. It's bedtime. I get into bed. I pull out my notebook. I write down 5 things that I am grateful for today. And then I have a little bottle of an essential oil aromatherapy. There are your nose sense of smell goes right into your brain. So when you smell something that you like, all kinds of things are going up on there. So you can use aromatherapy. Now, what I would like you to do is to write down 3 rewards, because this is a little more art than science. This is a little bit about figuring out, where am I when this is happening? What's appropriate and what is actually rewarding to me? So write down 3 rewards that you're going to experiment with. Stays up all night. I do have that problem as well. So read something boring. So Tara, when you say my team needs self-motivation, what I would say is each member of the team needs to discover what motivates them. Yeah, give me a thumbs up when you're good. And we have just a few minutes left here. So I would love to spend more time talking about this and sharing with you a good old scotch. Liquor is also always a reward. All right, you're all doing great. Okay. We have so much more that we could talk about today, but I need to wrap up. And so type into the chat box for me, what is the mother of habit? All right, there we go. We've got Scott and we have Mike and Brian, Sally, Cindy, Brittany. Yes, repetition. And the bad news is that we have today done the easy part. You know what you need to do, and now you have to go out there and do it, because the only way to create those neural pathways is through repetition, right? There is no shortcut. There's nothing sexy or exciting about this process. And I'm sorry, I wish there was, but there's not. And what happens for people after they leave a training like this, and you might be really excited right now, and you say, you know what, I'm so glad I got all this information. I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to start meditating. And then what happens is, frankly, you might just forget entirely. The Ebbinghaus forgetting curve suggests that people will forget somewhere between 60 and 90% of everything they hear in a training. You can forget. Or maybe you remember, but then you say, well, not today, because, and let me pull out my book of excuses. I got a million good reasons why it makes sense for me not to do this today. Or you are going to do it, but you get distracted. You get a phone call, somebody comes into your office, something happens, right? And then you forget. And repetition is the mother of habit, and repetition is boring. Right? Like I said, this is not a super fun process. You just gotta, buckle down and do it for a little while. And we don't like to do things that we don't find fun. And so we start to say things like, well, it's not that important. I can pick it up again next week. You know what? As soon as I'm done with this big project, then I can have more time and energy to devote to that. Or you do it and it doesn't go very well. It feels a little weird. People kind of respond badly. And adults don't like to do things that we're not good at. And so you don't want to do it again. We know all of these things are going to come up for not just you, but anytime you are doing a training for people, all of these things are going to come up for them after they leave a training, which is why I want you to remember that knowledge is not enough. When we work with clients, we come in with at least 60 days of support on the back end to really foster that repetition, help people get the support that they need to stick with it long enough to create those new neural pathways. So let me, as we have Scott, we've got 1 minute left. Is that right? Okay, so let me just invite you. So we hold a semi-regular safety leaders forum. These are designed specifically to allow safety professionals to talk to other safety professionals about issues that are important to them, challenges they're experiencing. Mike has been to them. So our next one is coming up October 27th. I'm going to be sharing with you some research that we've done on frontline supervisors' leadership skills. If you would like to join us, drop me an email. I'm going to go ahead and just pop my email address into the chat and drop me an email and I'll let you know how to attend.